And we are being joined by Alicia Bowens all the way from Chicago. We have a room full here at Velma Jackson High School. We are recording this also for our friends at Rosa Scott, Ridgeland High School and Germantown High School, and for our YouTube channel. And we've talked about, and we've been talking about the information technology career cluster. And we've looked at a couple of your videos, and you started the IT company, and you have turned that into quite an impressive resume and quite an impressive career and calling that you're doing up there in the Windy City. And we have some great questions from the kids we're going to get to, but I'll let you have the floor and tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are and how you started the is it BIT
Be it staffing.
BIT staffing? Yeah, you started the information technology staffing company that obviously you saw a need for, which is a huge growing industry in America right now. So it's such a great field for these kids to get into if they're interested in that. So I'll let you tell us a little bit about you and what all you do and some of the stuff you've done, because it's quite impressive.
Oh, what don't I do? Well, as you know, my name is Alicia Bowens. I am going to focus on the IT realm. So, grew up in Chicago, born and raised here in this area. Went to University of Illinois College. Obtained my degree in business administration with a concentration in management information systems. From there, when I graduated, I started off at the help desk. I actually graduated in 2001, and I was going to a career fair during 9/11 when 9/11 happened.
Wow.
Yeah, so when I went down to the career fair, it was a ghost town because everyone at the career fair were coming from Chicago. I was going to a career fair in Champaign, Illinois. So they evacuated downtown when 9/11 hit. So needless to say, no one showed up at the career fair. So I was doing my research from a business administration and MIS perspective on how to tap into the IT industry. And I came across an article that said the best way to get into your field, in my field, was to enter through the help desk.
Yeah.
Because that way you were able to interact with various people of different levels and different areas of expertise. So it helped, it was like a networking opportunity to get to know everyone on a more personable level, because you're ultimately fixing their computers and you're understanding their IT issues. So you're understanding that tech talk, but you're able to come to them in a professional manner.
Absolutely.
That's where I started off in the help desk. From there, I moved on to a business analysis role. So I did business analysis for a few years, and then I jumped over into project management.
Wow.
And now I am in project management, but now it's a new form of project management called Scrum Master. So Scrum Master, we lead software development companies and we help them to push the updates. You know, on your phones, you get all the updates.
Yeah.
I'm the person that's directing the team so they can get those updates out.
No, and it has to be faster and faster.
Yes, 2 weeks.
They will,
2 weeks.
yeah, it has to, with all the needs for technology. It's faster and faster. Now, one thing that we talked about, and I had an IT guest yesterday who's local, and he has a degree in computer science, a similar type degree, and he works with our Department of Revenue here in Jackson, and talked about the need, and it said in the IT field specifically, you know, it's not so much the education as it is the skills and the experience, because they're hiring 19, 20-year-olds right out of community colleges that have the certifications that they need, because it is such a need to keep up with the e-commerce side and the need for these businesses to keep up with servers that have to be working in order to do business. And also, he said a lot of military training people that come out of the military after 4 or 5 years that have worked with the state-of-the-art technology that the government has is really what these companies are looking for when it comes to IT.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Everything is turning into IT. I'm actually trying to look up a book that I actually purchased. It's called Vaporized. And it talks about how everything in the industry, anything customer service related, anything that can be automated is going to be eliminated as far as human doing the job. So if you're in those areas, everything is going to require some angle of IT, some type of technology is going to be involved in it. So I think that's why the IT is getting so broad. Usually when you say you're in IT, someone say, oh, I have issues with my computer. It's like, no, I'm not that type of IT person. So the range is so broad. You have marketing, you have the communications IT perspective, you have like the finance perspective. You even have like now we're seeing how important it is to have that in the medical industry, because they were so used to having paper everywhere. So when you go to a doctor and then you go to another doctor, they don't have the information because the systems aren't there. So now there's a big push to get everything integrated into systems so that no matter where you go, your information goes with you.
Yeah, and I actually just used that example before you came on about at the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
A good friend of mine is one of the IT guys at our big university medical center here in Jackson, and he has no idea how to help me if I get sick. But what he does know how to do, he knows how to manage those systems that the doctors use in order to keep up with prescriptions. In order, because patients see multiple doctors, that database has to run, that server has to run. They have to be able to write the prescriptions to the pharmacies. They have to be able, patient records are, and then for protecting the security of it as well. Those software people are just as important as the doctors in a healthcare system.
Definitely. And even in the government, you see that at the governmental level, there's not a lot of IT systems in place. It's still paper and pen.
Yeah, and we also, when we talked about also, it doesn't matter if it's McDonald's, whether it's Hampton Inn, whether it's Nissan, whether it's a hospital, every company has to have experienced IT people to be able to do business. And yes. I think with you starting your business, I think you saw that and were able to profitize on it because you saw the need that these companies have for IT professionals.
But actually, I started that business on accident. So what? When I started it, my intentions were to get off of the W-2 and to contract myself out. So as a contractor, independent contractor. And once I did that, I kept hearing the different conversations. Me being in the IT industry, they're having so much trouble finding the help they need. But then I'm surrounded by IT people and they're having trouble finding jobs.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, so then I started networking in these circles of recruiting circles, and ran into someone who was actually hiring for a position, and he actually gave me a shot. I brought someone on staff for them, and that was just one person. It was lucrative. So that's how I was like, okay, this is good. Unfortunately, I had to go back to the work arena because that required a lot of networking, but that business is still one of my dreams to really get that up and running. So right now I'm working on a W-2 employee with a consulting firm called Accenture. I don't know if you all are familiar with Accenture. So I work with a multitude of clients. So it's similar to being on a contract level or a consultative basis because I get to see so many different companies. So right now I'm working with Coca-Cola, which is interesting. So you get to see so many larger companies and get to change environments so you're not stuck at the same job.
Yeah, and something else we talked about as well, and we saw a couple of videos about this, is that in the IT field, it's not just sitting behind a desk. There's a lot of hands-on, taking apart machines, fixing machines, having to get the wires in the right ports, and those servers cannot go down. So it's important, the maintenance and the repair is a big part of that as well. So if kids are interested in that type of stuff, it's always a need for it.
Yeah, but that's the technical side. I don't touch machines.
Oh, wow.
So I'm on the business side of IT. So there's a whole different aspect. So I know how to talk that language. Mm-hmm. You can tell me about the code and the wires, but don't put me behind a computer and code because I'm gonna blow something up. But I'm involved in making sure that the developers are communicating with the business and making sure that they're getting the right requirements to develop the software and the information and the things that are needed for the customers to use at the end. So there's so many different aspects. It's not just technical. So I know you have students in there thinking that they need to have computer skills or whatever. You don't necessarily have to have the computer skills. If you can talk the language and communicate effectively, because that's some of the drawbacks in technology. You have people who are used to working on the machines and are used to coding, but they don't have that communication skill. So that's where I come in as the business analyst or as the project manager or the Scrum Master to make sure that those requirements that the business and the stakeholders are looking for gets translated in a way that can be understood by the developers, and then vice versa.
Yeah. Now, before we talk about Millionaire M.O.M, I'm glad you just mentioned that, because we had a speaker earlier this week who talked about the importance of being a good communicator, because he's on the radio and he said it's frustrating when he gets a young kid that wants to get on there and mumble because they think it's cool to mumble. How important is it to be a good communicator? Because to me, personally, you can have the education, you can have the skills, you can have the training, but if you can't communicate and sell yourself and sell a product, it's going to be difficult for you in any type of career field. So how important is that, especially when you're dealing with the customers?
I would say communication is important all the way around, even in your personal life. So the way you communicate professionally typically will reflect on how you communicate interpersonally, because that's the breakdown of everything. I would say in this society, it's a communication breakdown, a misunderstanding. Something is not being communicated properly or in a way that another person can receive it. And I can go into a whole big depth of that. That's related to how we were raised and our perspectives and our triggers and everything that we have to understand ourselves to really understand how we're receiving the information, and then also how we're communicating it out to others.
Yeah,
but yes, definitely important in the workspace. So that's
and the kids want to get mad at me when I make them present stuff, but it's not to be mean and it's not to make them nervous. But I'm comfortable speaking in front of people. You're comfortable speaking in front of people, and that's fine. But you don't have to be a public speaker in order to be a great communicator. Being able to talk to clients, especially in the IT area, somebody's calling you about a software issue, you're going to have to be able to explain to them how to fix it. You're going to have to, even if you're not in the IT field, if you're going to be fixing cars, you're going to have to tell the customer what's wrong with their vehicle. So being able to communicate like that is so important across so many avenues. Now, we would be remiss if we did not talk about all the other stuff you're doing, because it's so interesting. And we did watch a brief clip of your Millionaire M.O.M and as Mothers on a Mission. We would love to hear more about that and how you started that, and kind of what all you guys do up there in Chicago.
Well, I started that initially. Well, just to give you a background on me, what grade students are you teaching?
I have all ninth graders.
Ninth grade.
14, 15, a couple 16. We got a couple 10th graders in here as well.
So I can say at their age, I was sitting in the classroom pregnant. I was pregnant at 14 years old and had my son at 15. I took him to college with me because my grandmother wanted me to keep him home with them, but I was like, I wanted to raise my child. I didn't want him to come. I didn't want to come home, and he called me by my first name.
That's a real issue. That's very,
yes.
Good to think of that.
Yeah, so I ended up taking him to college with me. So he had the whole full-fledged experience. There were opportunities that I wasn't aware of that I became aware of, because such as when I qualified for more financial aid because I had a child, so they classified me as independent. So that solved a couple of problems financially, but it also helped me to learn. But in addition to that, I also had a support system. So I was able to bring him home during finals and things if I did want to have a little bit of fun. So I did have a good balance, and that support system is crucial to young mothers. So after I graduated from college, I knew that there was more I wanted to do. I wanted to give back, and I wanted to create that understanding or share that knowledge, what I learned, to let other young mothers know that there are opportunities out there, and there are resources available for you to continue your education, and you don't have to think that your life is over once you have a child at a young age. It's just a matter of connecting to the resources and becoming aware of the resources. So I shared my information in my book called Love for Teen Moms. And that talked about my journey through high school and college, and how I navigated that, as well as navigating my relationship with my child's father, and understanding how to love myself and accept myself again. So Millionaire M.O.M is a collaboration of women who were also teen moms, but they're now successful entrepreneurs, community activists, business women, and whatever. And they just shared their story and their experiences of being a teen mom, as well as the lessons they've learned along the way. And I thought it was good for us, as well as it was good for them too, because it helped them to revisit those feelings and realize that some areas they still hadn't healed from. So it allowed them, it was more of a therapeutic way for them to move forward, as well as it pushed them into a level of discomfort in areas that they wanted to grow in and thrive in. So it allowed them to grow their businesses and expand into video and marketing and doing those things that they weren't expecting to do.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned too, because obviously we aren't going to advocate for someone getting pregnant at 14. Right. But we are a rural all-Black community here in Camden, and a lot of the kids that come through here say they're not aware of what's available for them. There are all type of federal grant programs, there are federal aid programs, and we really push fast. But so if a kid has that dream to go to college, if that's the best route for them, it's not. You don't have to get strapped with millions and millions of dollars of student debt. There are grants to help minorities get through college, and then at the end of the day, if you really put yourself in high school, you can qualify for those academic scholarships. It's not something that's unattainable.
Yes. Yeah, I did go on scholarship too. I did have a presidential scholarship, so I went there. But in addition, I did utilize the funding, the grant funding that was available, as well as student loans.
Yeah. And especially with the me and you are about the same age, the cost of college has skyrocketed.
Oh yeah.
Came through. So it's important for, everybody that's watching now and that's with me now and those that might watch later, the financial aspect of college is very daunting, but, especially for our minority students, there are several great grants and programs that want young people to get into these technological fields because these companies need it. They want people to be educated in this stuff. And one thing Mississippi does a great job of, we get all this bad press, but we do a great job of utilizing our community college system where you can get certified in all type of technical fields in just 1 year, start working full time. And then these companies would rather have somebody that knows the skill and has a fancy degree with a technology that's already outdated. So, it's a right now, IT, at least in my opinion, and you may disagree, but IT right now to me is probably the best field in America to get into because of especially since COVID. We saw the importance of e-commerce. We saw the importance of remote work. So these servers, these software, they have to be taken care of because again, like I said, our guest yesterday with the Department of Revenue, he has no idea on the financial side. He can't tell you anything about a tax code, but those servers have to be able to run. These companies have to be able to do business. So the people behind the scenes are just as important as the people you deal with on the customer side. But I do have some great questions I want to get to from the kids. And some of these are tough, so good luck with them. But all these are ninth graders.
Okay.
This is Lamar Kennedy, and his question is, what all technical certifications do you have?
Okay, I have my PMP, was my project management professional certification. I have my PBA, professional and business analysis. I have my CSM, which is certified Scrum Master. I have my LSSGB, which is Lean Six Sigma Green Belt. And I think I have one more. I think I'm forgetting one. But those are the main ones that I have. Those are certifications.
That's awesome.
I think they're not really as technical. They're more process oriented when it comes to technology. So that's where I'm in the process space.
Yeah, and then even on that, I really try to push our kids to learn multiple operating systems because we have all of our students have MacBooks. Well, we're extremely blessed to have that here. But everything doesn't run on iOS. How important is it to learn multiple operating systems, to learn the Windows? But I mean, the iOS is fine, but to learn the Windows and the other operating systems
is very important. As a developer, I would say iOS and MacBooks, those are more creative people. So you have the graphic designers and the marketing. They use MacBooks. Developers, they use Linux, they use Unix, they use Windows, they use those platforms to develop on. So it's very important to know those. I mean, depending on what area you're going to go in, then that's where you want to hone in on. But it's always good to know multiple operating systems.
Yeah, they want to mumble and grumble when I have them use the Windows, but I'm like, look, you're going to have to learn how to use both at some point. So
Windows is universal, so that's where you can't get away from Windows.
Absolutely. I mean, it's such an underrated skill to be able to use multiple operating systems. And this is Dakala Nettles, and she asked, what would you say is the most difficult thing about working with newer systems and technology that are always being created?
The most difficult, I guess, is the learning piece, just learning the differences. So it's just, you have to constantly hone your skill. Like for me as a project manager, we're required to take classes every so often. Even as a realtor, I'm a realtor also. We have to take educational CE units, what you call continuing education units, just to make sure we're always up to the latest and greatest in laws or technology or whatever. So it's just important to continuously learn.
Yeah, and my mother's in real estate, and I had to do the CEUs as a teacher, and she talks about how realtors have to do the CEUs as well on real estate licenses. Now this is Anaya Gamble, and she asked, "Have you programmed? How many languages have you programmed in?"
I've done very little programming. I've done some C and C++ and Java, and that's where I stopped. And that was mainly classwork. So I don't do any programming on the job, so to speak. But I'll define the business logic and give that to the developers to program.
Well, but even though you aren't doing the programming, having that knowledge of the jargon and having the vocabulary is extremely important. You don't have to be a programming expert, but having the knowledge to assist with the programmer is extremely valuable.
Yeah, so for me, I would have to understand from the business perspective that logic. So as a business analyst, what I would used to do, I would have to sit down with each employee, understand what they're doing, how they do it, understand any pain points, and then go back with my team and identify how can we automate, how can we make this easier. And unfortunately, that would end up in sometimes a reduction of headcount or recruit or increased efficiency, or they would either get laid off or get more work. That's how we see things, and that's the way technology is going. So it's very important to hone in on those skills. Just identify things that are automated or things that can be automated, and how you can become a critical piece in that.
Yeah, and that's a great segue to this next question. And this is America Jones, and she asked, "What is the hardest thing about transitioning to a new technology?"
Well, the hardest thing about transitioning is just learning how to work differently, learning how to redefine how you work. Right. I'm in the transformation space. So I'm dealing with companies that are like the company I'm currently with. We're going through an agile transformation. And so it's changing the way that they have to work together and changing the way that they used to work. So it was traditional project management where projects can take years to build the requirements, develop it, and deliver. And now we're trying to crunch all of that down into a 2 to 3 week time frame. So it's totally changing the dynamic of how they have to work together, and it's no more silos. You have to communicate more. I mean, communication is key in order to be able to release quickly.
Yeah, and that also goes along with on the writing communication as well, because being able to write a professional email to explain things is extremely important. I tell these kids all the time, you can't email like you text.
Oh, I was just about to say the same thing. Please don't. Please don't email like you text.
Yeah, I mean, so especially in a business setting, you can't send an email like you're sending a text message to your friend. Being able to communicate on a professional level is extremely important, especially in these technical fields when you can't mess up the process. So it's companies are dependent on it, so you can't be willy nilly with it. This is Wyatt Cooper. She's asking about the entrepreneur side and asked, how hard was it to start your own company?
Oh, it's challenging because you have to have a different mindset. You're not being told what to do. You have to define what you're going to do. So you're not an employee waiting for your manager or your boss to tell you what you need to do for the day. You're setting your day, and you have to set it every day. And sometimes those days turn into more than 10, 12-hour working days. So it's not for the faint of heart. I would say it's definitely not impossible, but it's something you have to learn to be consistent. It takes discipline. Absolutely. And even a lot of IT jobs they want you to have that entrepreneurial mindset. And that's what I was going to say, because they're actually were on the cutting edge when COVID hit, because we could work from home. I'm still working from home 100%.
Wow.
So, and it's not just because of COVID, it's just because that's just how we work. So IT is flexible in that arena. So they're very progressive as far as you work how you live. That's what the key is.
Yeah, and even if you're not an entrepreneur, I always say all the time, you can think like an entrepreneur and be an extremely valuable employee. Mm-hmm. So if you're always thinking about how to sell things and how to make your company better, your company is going to keep you around and they're going to pay you well to do it.
Yeah, one of my mentors told me, he said, "You are the answer to a question that someone is waiting to ask."
Wow, what a great quote! What a great quote. Yeah, and I have an entrepreneurship program, and I'd love to have you speak with them next year. But I always say, everybody wants to be their own boss until they see how hard it is. So, but there's a lot of opportunities for even part-time entrepreneurship in the IT realm, because you can be an employee but still be an entrepreneur on the side, especially in these technical fields, because you can have a side hustle. You can work in IT for a company and do a little freelance on the side for the small business, and still and be able to make your own schedule. So there's definitely opportunities for entrepreneurship in the IT realm that I don't think a lot of people realize. I got one more from the students. This is Camiria Smith. And she asked, what would you tell someone who wanted to get into the IT field but did not know anything about it?
I would say first hone down into what it is that they like. What are the things that they like to do, and then connect that into the IT realm. Because like I said, IT is so broad. It doesn't necessarily have to be technical. You may be a person that likes to see things getting put together or like to understand how things work. And that can go into the business analysis realm, where you're understanding how businesses function and the roles they play and how they can run more efficiently, or process management. just understanding how things connect together and the sequence of events. And it's just, doesn't have to be as technical. It could just be as simple as just understanding how people communicate.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
No, we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for joining us. I know you have a crazy schedule, but before we go, you have and you didn't get a lot into it because I know you're extremely humble, but you've done some amazing things up there in Chicago, and we watched a clip. We watched a couple of your clips and looked at your website, and it's just so amazing what all you've done despite your circumstances. Because, like you said, you were pregnant in the 9th grade, and you grew up in Chicago. We have a couple of teachers from Chicago, and I hear all kind of crazy stuff about how tough it is to grow up Black in Chicago. I mean, these kids don't know how easy they have it. But like I said, we are an all Black community, but these kids are going to face some of the same obstacles you face. So what can they do, being young Black kids in America, to overcome the same obstacles that you overcome?
I would definitely say find a mentor, find the resources that you need. I had a coaching course I would teach called From Survival to Success. And I know when you're young and when you're impoverished and you don't have the things you need, you're focusing on survival. You're focusing on, I need to make sure I can eat for the day. I need to make sure that my family has a roof over their head. I got to make sure that I have clothes on my back. So you don't have time to worry about what's going on in class or worry about homework. So the important thing is to find the resources that you need, find a mentor, make sure you have someone that you can talk to. And I think the biggest component at that age is learning how to think critically. Enroll in chess, play chess. I heard that is excellent for helping critical thinking skills, because you have to know, teenagers, you think off of your emotions. So you act before you think, and then you have these consequences that you have to live with for the rest of your life because you acted without thinking first. So I always make sure you think first. If it's something that's setting you off, I would say pause, think about it, take a step back, and then decide how you want to act.
Great advice and some great quotes. So again, Alicia Bowens, thank you so much for joining us. AliciaBowens.com. Great follow on social media. She's got some great stuff out there in the Millionaire M.O.M up there in Chicago. Just a great organization doing some amazing things. Been featured all over the news, all over the internet. I know you're humble and you haven't mentioned it, but you're all over the place doing some great stuff. But we thank you so much for making some time for us this morning. And I will definitely be getting with you. Our school year is almost over, but I'll be definitely getting with you to speak to our entrepreneurship students next year. That was some great stuff about being self-employed. So again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right. I'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Okay, thanks.